sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the few coins in his hand. His baby's soft cry filled the room, cutting through his chest like a knife. Esther walked over, her eyes tired but caring. "Eat something," she said, placing a plate of beans on the table. Outside, the landlord's bicycle bell rang. Rent was due again. Later that day, James was walking home when a white SUV stopped beside him. The tinted window rolled down and a familiar voice called, "James?" It was Mike, his old school friend. Back in school, they had shared poverty together. Now Mike wore wealth like a suit. The watch on his wrist alone looked like it could feed a family for months. "Hop in," Mike said with a grin. Inside the cool car, James felt the weight of his struggles. They caught up, laughed a little, but then Mike leaned in. "Life doesn't have to be this hard. There's a way out, but it's not for everyone." The words stuck with James all night. He tossed and turned, staring at Esther and the baby sleeping beside her. His wife whispered, "We'll be fine." He nodded, but deep down, he knew fine was far away. A few days later, Mike called again. "If you're ready to stop suffering, there's a door. I can show you, show me." James replied. Mike drove him to a large house hidden behind high fences. From the outside, it looked normal. Inside, it felt different. Too many lights, too many men standing silently. The air was heavy. At the end of a long hallway stood a man dressed in white. His voice was calm but carried weight. "Welcome here. Nothing comes free. To receive, you must give. To gain, you must lose. Do you understand?" James nodded. The man looked straight at him. "Your price is your first seed, your child." The world seemed to freeze. James's throat locked. Mike placed a hand on his back. "Think carefully," he whispered. "Poverty is also a prison. You've been trapped long enough." That night James couldn't breathe. He sat by the window, staring out at the dark street. His baby slept in Esther's arms. He told himself a lie to survive the thought, "It's just once. After this, life will change forever." The next day, James returned to the house, the air still and heavy, as though it already knew what he had agreed to do. The gates opened without a word. Inside, men stood in silence, their eyes on him, but their faces hidden. He kept his head low, his feet dragging over the tiled floor as Mike walked ahead of him. The corridor stretched longer than he remembered, walls lined with flickering lamps that made the shadows bend and twist. At the end, the man in white waited. His eyes did not blink, his face gave nothing away. "Do you understand the price?" the man asked. James's throat tightened, but he nodded. He forced the words out, cracked and weak. "I accept." They led him down into a lower room, colder, older than the house above. The walls were marked with chalk symbols, and candles burned low in each corner. The air smelled of blood and smoke. Around him, men in dark robes formed a circle. They said nothing, but their stillness pressed on him like a weight. The man in white handed him a cord, a white cloth, and a shallow calabash bowl. "You will not speak," he warned. "You will not look away. You will finish what you begin." James's hand shook so badly, he almost dropped them. His baby's cries already rang in his head, even though the room was silent. The chant began, slow and low, voices blending into one endless hum. The shadows swayed with the rhythm, and James felt his knees weaken beneath him. His child was placed before him, small and helpless, eyes closed, chest rising and falling with soft breaths. He wanted to run, to scream, to fall to the ground and beg, but no sound came out. His tears fell hot against his cheeks. His hands moved, not because he wanted them to, but because the circle demanded it. The chanting grew louder, the room darker. James squeezed his eyes shut as the final moment arrived. His breath tore out of him like fire, his body trembling violently as he did what no father should. The sound stopped. The chanting stopped. The room fell into a silence so deep it rang in his ears. The man in white took the bowl, tied the cloth with the cord, and sealed it with steady hand. He placed it back into James's shaking palms. "It is done," he said. "Do not speak of this. Your world begins tonight." James could not lift his head. His body felt hollow, his chest empty. When it was over, he walked home like a man with no soul. Esther saw his face and instantly knew something was wrong. "Where is he? Where's the baby?" she asked, her voice already shaking. James lied. "He fell sick. The doctors couldn't save him." Esther screamed. Neighbors gathered. A small funeral was arranged. People shook their heads and offered prayers. No one questioned too deeply. At the burial, Mike pressed an envelope into James's hand. "It has begun. Don't look back." Money came like magic. Jobs returned. Contracts reopened. People who once ignored James started calling him. Within weeks, he moved Esther into a new flat with balconies, air conditioning, and brand new furniture. Esther smiled, but grief sat in her heart. No money could replace what she lost. She noticed James often woke up sweating. She noticed how quickly he dodged certain questions. She noticed how he avoided the baby's old things. Then the sounds began. At 3:13 a.m., James woke to a faint baby's cry. Not loud, just enough to freeze his blood. The next night, the TV in the living room switched itself on. The screen glowed blue, humming softly. From under the couch, a rattle rolled across the floor and touched his foot. James forced a laugh at breakfast and told Esther it was a power issue. But each night, it grew worse. The lullaby Esther used to sing echoed faintly down the corridor. The house no longer felt like theirs. Esther noticed more strange things. The hospital receipt James had shown her carried the wrong time. A neighbor swore she saw James alone on the morning he claimed he was at the hospital. And when Esther opened the baby's keepsake box, the white cap was missing. At church, a woman touched her arm. "Peace will come," she whispered, "when truth is spoken." That night, Esther watched James as he mumbled in his sleep, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry." The curtains moved even though the windows were shut. The air grew cold. Esther knew her husband was hiding something. One evening, Mike visited with wine. He admired the new apartment, then leaned close. "You're making this difficult," he said. "Remember the rule. Silence. If you confess, you lose everything, not just money." "Everything," James whispered. "Do you hear it too?" Mike's smile dropped for just a moment. "Everybody pays. Some pay once, some every night. Learn to live with it." After he left, the house grew restless. James saw small handprints fogging the balcony door. He wiped them, but his palm came away wet. One stormy night at exactly 3:13 a.m., the baby's cry filled the bedroom, clear, sharp. The door swung open on its own. The corridor glowed blue from the TV, even though it was off. A rattle rolled into the room. The missing white cap slid onto the bed. In the wardrobe mirror, James and Esther were not alone. A small flickering shape appeared between them. The smell of baby powder filled the air, mixed with the faint metallic tang of rain pressing at the windows. "What is this?" Esther demanded, her voice trembling but strong enough to cut through the storm outside. James's lips moved, but only broken whispers came out. He tried to pray, but the words tangled into choking sobs. The baby's cry grew louder, bouncing off the walls, as if the whole house had become a cradle. The sheet on the bed pulled again and again, each tug harder, as though invisible hands were tearing it away. "James," Esther shouted, her voice cracking. "What did you do? Tell me now." And then he broke. His knees buckled. He collapsed onto the cold tiles, palms clutching his face, his body shaking violently. They asked for what I loved most." His words came out like blades. "I gave them my child. The confession exploded into the room like thunder. Esther stumbled back, her breath catching, one hand clutching her chest, the other gripping the wardrobe as if it was the only thing keeping her standing. Tears poured down her face, mixing with the sweat of fear. For a moment, the cry stopped. The air went deathly still. But then, from the corner of the room, a faint giggle rose. Not Esther's, not James's. The sound of a baby laughing, high-pitched, playful, but twisted with echoes. James screamed, covering his ears. Stop it! Stop it! It thrashed on the floor, kicking at shadows. Esther stood frozen, horrified, whispering prayers that felt too small for the moment. Neighbors later said they heard it all, a man crying, a woman praying, and something else, something that didn't sound human. The lights flickered wildly, the building groaned, and then the storm outside broke with heavy rain, battering the windows like fists desperate to get in. James sat on the floor, rocking back and forth, muttering, I did it. I chose it. I did it. I chose it. His words broke into manic laughter, then collapsed into sobs, then twisted back into laughter again. His face stretched into a smile that wasn't a smile at all. Esther dropped to her knees, her tears falling hard. Lord, help us. Mercy, mercy, she cried, her voice raw. But the room seemed deaf, filled only with James's broken chorus. At last, she grabbed her phone and dialed. Please come quickly, she begged. My husband needs help. She didn't explain further. Some truths were too heavy to carry across a phone line. By morning, James was gone, not in body, but in his mind. His eyes were open, but nothing human lived behind them. Doctors at the clinic later called it a total breakdown, a collapse under unbearable pressure. To Esther, it felt like losing him twice, but even inside the clinic, the haunting followed him. Nurses whispered that at night, James rocked in his bed, cradling nothing. Sometimes he sang lullabies in a soft, broken voice. Sometimes he screamed so loud that other patients cried out in fear. One night, a nurse swore she heard a baby's cry echoing through the ward, though no child was there. The sound faded only when James began laughing to himself, whispering, He's here. My boy is here. Esther stopped visiting after that. The sight of James staring at thin air, smiling like a father teaching a child to walk, tore her apart, more than silence ever could. Weeks later, when Esther returned to the old apartment to collect her last things, she felt it again. The air was cooler than it should have been. As she packed a small box, she heard the faint rattle of a toy rolling across the floor. Slowly she turned. The baby's cap lay in the middle of the room, though she had buried it deep inside a trunk weeks ago. Her hands shook, but she picked it up. She held it to her chest, tears flooding her eyes. I'm sorry, she whispered into the empty room. I didn't know what he did. The curtain fluttered, though the windows were shut. For a moment, Esther thought she heard a baby's sigh, soft and almost peaceful. Then the room went quiet. She left that day and never returned. Some evening, neighbors spotted James near the abandoned football field. He would sway gently, rocking invisible weight in his arms. Sometimes he sang softly, broken lullabies no one else could recognize. At other times he laughed suddenly, loud and sharp, then immediately broke into tears, falling to his knees on the dusty ground. Children whispered that James had a companion only he could see. Adults crossed the street in silence. Mike never returned. Men like him always find new roads until the road ends. And in that apartment, long after Esther left, tenants said that at 3:13 a.m., the air turned cold, carrying the faint smell of baby powder. A rattle echoed in the corridor, though no child lived there, because in this city, some doors look ordinary, but once opened, they never truly close. and behind them, there is always a price